Revealed, how a poor cleaner's amazing act transformed the lives of a millionaire's twins forever. Clara stood at the edge of the bustling suburban town, her heart heavy with dreams yet unfulfilled. As a single mother of two, she felt the weight of the world resting on her shoulders. Julian and Mia were her whole life, and every single minute she spent cleaning the lavish high-rise apartments brought back a sliver of pride. She scrubbed floors and wiped windows until they gleamed, all while listening to the laughter of her spirited children echo in her mind. They deserved a better life, and she was determined to give it to them, but life in the shadow of the Harringtons was no fairy tale. The wealthy couple glided through their lives in opulence, their twin boys, Ethan and Luke, possessing every gadget and toy imaginable, yet showing absolute disregard for the struggles of families like Clara's. Their laughter often rang out as they mocked the girls at school, their smiles mocking not just Mia's worn-out shoes but the very fabric of Clara's existence. One fateful afternoon, Julian had stood tall against the torment of his peers. "Hey! That's not cool!" he shouted, his young voice carrying bravery that spoke louder than his small stature. The principal, residing just a few floors above in the same high-rise, turned a blind eye. Like a match igniting a flame, Clara's heart swelled with indignation. She had raised her children to be kind, courageous, and empathetic, and it was time to confront the Harringtons about their blind privilege. As she stood at their door, she felt bare, vulnerable to judgment. With a deep breath, she shared her family's journey, the late-night struggles, the sacrifices made, and hopes held close. "We are not just cleaners," she declared, her voice steady. For a brief moment, she saw flickers of understanding cross the Harringtons' faces, a shift in perspective slowly emerging. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue, but just as hope began to weave a connection, disaster struck. The skies darkened, unleashing a torrent of rain, flooding the streets in a matter of minutes. Panic rippled through the town as the waters rose, and Clara's heart sank when she saw Ethan and Luke, stranded and terrified. Without a moment's thought, she leaped into the raging waters, her instincts kicking in. Adrenaline fueled her determination as she reached for the boys, their faces frozen in fear. With every ounce of her strength, she swam against the current, guiding them to safety. In that moment of raw courage, something shifted. Clara became more than just a cleaner, she became a beacon of hope and strength. As they emerged from the waters, shivering but alive, the realization dawned on Ethan and Luke, their perceptions forever changed. Clara had shown them the true value of life, shattering boundaries with her bravery. And as the community rallied to rebuild, she felt anxious but hopeful about what the future held for her family and the Harringtons. Would they rise from this moment, or would they fall back into the comfort of their privilege? The air was thick with unspoken questions, and Clara's heart pounded with anticipation for what was to come. Clara's heartbeat echoed in her ears as she stepped back from the riverbank, her clothes drenched but her spirit aflame. Around her, townsfolk rushed to help, some shouting instructions, others simply comforting the children. The scene felt surreal, as if time had warped, granting her newfound strength in the wake of chaos. Amid the tumult, she caught sight of the Harringtons standing across the street. Their expressions were a blend of shock and gratitude, two worlds colliding in a moment marked by urgency and revelation. Ethan blinked at her, the sunlight streaming through the dissipating clouds painting his face with a mixture of awe and humility. "Did you really just save us?" he stammered, each word heavy with its own weight. Luke stood beside him, his eyes wide with realization, a stark contrast to their usual indifference. Clara nodded, breathless yet proud, her own children darting toward her, concern etched on their small faces. "We thought we'd lost you," Julian exclaimed, gripping her tightly. Mia stood next to him, eyes glistening with unshed tears, both relieved and slightly bewildered. Clara knelt before her kids, soaking them with warm hugs, the power of their togetherness pushing out the chill of the day. The Harringtons approached slowly, their perfect facade cracking like the surface of a mirror they no longer recognized. "Clara," Mrs. Harrington finally said, her voice a tremor of emotion. How can we thank you?" Clara glanced at the boys, and her heart softened. They were just kids, after all, affected by the darkness of privilege. "You can start by treating everyone with kindness," Clara replied, her voice steady despite the exhaustion settling over her shoulders. "Your privilege doesn't put you above anyone else." The words hung in the air, charged with a gravity that silenced the murmurs around them. Clara felt the weight of countless stories shared in the glances between her and the Harringtons. Ethan was the first to speak again, and Clara could see that her act had hit him deep. I didn't know," he stuttered, and it felt like an apology for every mocking laugh he tossed at Mia in the schoolyard. The first crack to the bubble of arrogance they had grown up inside was being pierced. Luke stood quiet beside him, absorbing the moment. As the sun finally broke through the clouds, a rainbow arched across the sky, a vivid reminder that hope could rise from even the darkest storms. Clara's thoughts raced. There was so much to say, so much hung in the balance. But before she could gather her thoughts, Mr. Harrington stepped forward, his stunning suit drenched but his resolve unwavering. "Clara, let's work together. I want to understand, to learn how we can change our community, to help those like you." The weight of his words bore down on her, a mixture of disbelief and cautious optimism. "Together?" Clara whispered, still wary of the intentions underlying those words. Did he truly mean it, or was this merely a moment of guilt as the adrenaline wore off? Her heart and head were flooded with uncertainty, but still, she felt a spark of hope ignite within. "Together," he affirmed, a soft determination in his eyes. As the crowd began to disperse, buzzed with the excitement of a hero's story, Clara's world felt on the cusp of transformation. Yet as warmth spread through her, a cold knot dug deep in her stomach. Could they really change? Could she trust them, or would she end up disappointed? Just then, she caught a glimpse of Mia, her daughter's gaze filled with admiration, but Clara feared it was misplaced. The future spun like an unfinished tale, full of potential and peril, waiting for someone to write the next chapter. Would she seize this unexpected lifeline or let it slip away? Feeling the tension in the air, Clara knew one thing for certain: the next steps held the power to redefine all their lives. And as she looked into the eyes of her children, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something bigger than any of them could imagine. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over the gathered crowd. Clara's heart raced, not just from her earlier exertion but from the uncertainty that loomed ahead. She stood at a crossroads, the weight of change hanging thick in the air. Would she truly step into the unknown, hand in hand with the Harringtons, signing her family's fate to their promises? As the townsfolk started to discuss the day's events, a lot of talk revolved around Clara's gallant act, praise mingling with disbelief. The rhythm of their voices surged and ebbed around her, but all Clara could focus on was the shifting dynamic before her, the potential born of this moment. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" Julian's voice broke through her thoughts, pulling her back into their bubble of reality. She looked down at him, his face a mixture of courage and concern. It was a question that haunted her, woven into the fabric of their lives. "Yes, honey," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We will be okay." But beneath that promise lay a knot of uncertainty. How could they remain okay if she took this leap into the unknown? Mia squeezed her hand, even as uncertainty swirled in Clara's mind. "I believe in them, Mom," she whispered, her youthful certainty glaringly bright. It made Clara smile, and in that moment, she felt herself torn between trepidation and hope. The Harringtons were still nearby, deep in conversation. Mrs. Harrington gestured emphatically, and Clara noticed the genuine passion in her voice. In that moment, Clara couldn't help but wonder, was this a fleeting emotion, or a true turning point? Ethan caught her gaze and smiled, a tentative gesture, but emerging from a place of sincerity. It struck Clara as profound. This was the first time she'd seen a crack in their bubble, their privilege blatantly acknowledged. Harrington turned to Clara, his expression earnest. "What's the first step?" He ventured forward, his question a thread that could sew their worlds together. It wasn't that simple, and Clara's thoughts began to race, a cacophony of fears and possibilities clashing like thunderclouds. "A first step is about listening," she said, surprising herself. "Really listening. Understanding the struggles of those you wish to help." It felt good to voice it aloud, a small crack in the wall she had built around her hesitations. "Then that's exactly what we'll do," he replied instantly, determination flaring in his eyes. Clara couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement alongside her wariness. Maybe, just maybe, this was a moment laden with promise. Around them, the crowd's excitement began to rise, murmurs of hope blended with skepticism swirling like the evening breeze. Clara's heart pounded as she realized the spotlight was on her, forming an unexpected alliance in the making. But questions lingered. Would this alliance be sustainable? Could true change erupt from their disparate lives? The air crackled with energy, voices rising, swirling together like a spectrum of emotions, hope, doubt, fear, and ambition. Clara felt the familiar urge to back away, to retreat to the safe haven of her old life, but something anchored her in place. She saw determination reflected in her children's eyes, a flicker of a possibility she held on to tightly. "Let's start this journey," Clara said, surprising herself with the strength behind her words. "But remember, the true test lies in actions, not words." They all nodded, a pact forming in the air, fragile yet full of potential. As the sun set, casting longer shadows, Clara could feel the stirrings of a new chapter unfolding all around them, but as she walked forward, a nagging question lingered at the back of her mind. Would they stand by her when the first storm hit? Or would the tides of privilege pull them away, leaving her to navigate the turbulent waters alone? One thing was certain, the path ahead would not be easy. It held promises of growth, understanding, and potentially hard truths yet to come. And with every step she took, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that a trial was looming on the horizon. Would they rise to the occasion or crumble under the pressure? The evening sky continued to deepen, hues of orange and purple dancing together as Clara led her children toward the Harringtons. The air was electric with anticipation, the whispers growing louder. Julian and Mia walked closely beside her, their small hands wrapped tightly around hers. Clara could feel their heartbeats, an echoing rhythm of shared uncertainty and quiet strength. As they approached, Clara could see the faces of the townsfolk shifting, eyes filled with curiosity and a hint of expectation. Conversations paused, and an almost reverent silence fell over them. She could sense the weight of their gaze, drawn to this budding collaboration. Mrs. Harrington stepped forward, her bright smile radiating warmth. "Clara, we've been discussing some ideas on how to truly connect with the community. We want to do this right." Her enthusiasm was palpable, but Clara could also see the trepidation beneath it. This wasn't just about making a difference, it was about changing themselves in the process. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the collective hope surround them. "It's going to take more than ideas. The people here have been hurt. They've faced struggles that can't be fixed simply through charity or good intentions." "Yes, absolutely," Mr. Harrington agreed, his face serious now. "We need to understand what their reality looks like." Clara nodded, satisfaction warming her. This was the first sign of true commitment. It felt right to be standing here, united by their desire to bridge their worlds. "We need to listen to their stories," she urged. "That's where real change begins." But as those words settled into the air, Clara remembered the work ahead. The townsfolk knew pain, loss, and a fear that coursed through their lives like a shadow. Would the Harringtons be able to hold steady when the flaws and failures began to emerge, when the stories shared were not just moments of inspiration, but cries for help? With newfound resolve, Clara glanced at her children, who watched, wide-eyed and curious. "This will be a journey for us all," she said, taking in the crowd. "A journey of learning and growth. Julian's hand slipped from hers and he stepped forward, his innocent bravado shining through. "I want to help too." His voice rang out, innocent and firm. It drew a few chuckles, dispelling the tension momentarily. Clara felt pride swell in her heart. Mia chimed in, "Yeah. We can have a big picnic and invite everyone." Clara felt the warmth of their shared dreams, a fleeting moment of hope that bathed them all in lighter colors than mar. Harrington beamed, his gaze moving between the children and Clara. "That sounds like a wonderful idea. A community picnic could be the first step toward bringing everyone together." Clara couldn't help but smile. It was a simple idea but rooted in joy. Just then, a voice rose from the crowd, heavy with skepticism, a local shopkeeper whose face sported deep lines of age and worry. "A picnic might seem nice, but what happens after? Change needs more than a party, doesn't it?" The air shifted, tension creeping back into the scene. Clara's heart raced again. What if this first act of goodwill was dismissed as a mere farce? The weight of expectation settled heavily on her shoulders. "It's only the beginning," she replied, her voice firm against the doubts gnawing at her. "We will gather more than just food. We'll gather stories, experiences, and hopes. It's all part of understanding one another." But something tugged at her, the fear that their intentions might fall short. Would they really show up when it counted? As the murmurs began to swirl once more, Clara resolved to forge ahead. There was a flicker of commitment igniting in her heart, yet it was tempered by the realism of the challenge. The Harringtons exchanged glances, their resolve solidifying. Clara felt the warmth of their commitment anew. As she prepared to voice her next thought, a sudden crash echoed through the evening, the sound of glass shattering, breaking the moment. Eyes turned toward the source, tension immediately returning like an unshakable fog. What had just happened? Clara's pulse quickened as she looked back at her children. They were confused, their faces reflecting the same uncertainty that gripped her own heart. With bated breath, everyone in the crowd focused on the chaos. Was this the first sign of the storm she had feared? Would this be the pivotal moment that changed everything? Clara took a step back, unsure of what would unfold next. Chaos erupted as a figure stepped forward from the crowd, and the sound of shattered glass echoed painfully in the air. Clara's stomach knotted. Who had caused such a disruption? The townspeople murmured anxiously, the worry in their eyes reflecting her own. Mrs. Harrington's smile had been replaced with a furrowed brow. "What just happened?" she whispered, her voice shaky. Clara felt her heart race as the crowd parted, revealing the shopkeeper, Mr. Jenkins, standing before them. He was gripping a broom awkwardly, an expression of both defiance and regret plastered across his face. It wasn't just glass that had shattered, it felt as if the fragile hopes they had managed to build moments before were on the brink of breaking too. "Sorry, everyone," he barked, voice surprisingly loud in the tense silence. "Didn't he mean to startle you? Just getting ready for the new season." He gestured at the mess he had made, a small pile of broken bottles at his feet. His tone was defensive, like a shield against the vulnerability that lay beneath. Mia clung to Clara's leg, her small frame trembling slightly. Clara knelt down, brushing a strand of hair away from her daughter's face. "It's all right, honey. Let us listen to what Mr. Jenkins has to say," she reassured, though uncertainty gnawed at her. "Listen," Mr. Jenkins continued, his voice softer now, but still carrying weight. "I've run this shop for years. I see folks coming in and out, wearing their pain like a coat. A picnic? Nice idea, but it won't change anything. You don't understand how deeply the hurt runs here." The crowd shifted, nodding along. Clara felt a mix of frustration and understanding. Mr. Jenkins spoke the truth, they were not here merely to celebrate. Was she prepared to really hear those stories? "We can't ignore the past or pretend smiles are going to help," Mr. Jenkins continued. "You think one picnic will fix a shattered community? You need to feel the heartbreak, not just listen. That's how you start. Clara's resolve felt tested against the weight of his words. She could see hope ebbing from the faces around her, and panic stirred within. What had she gotten them into? But just as a storm seemed to gather again, Julian stepped forward. He raised his small hand defiantly, "But we can try. Even if it's hard, we have to start somewhere, right?" His earnestness brought a flicker of light back into the murky atmosphere. Clara blinked, her son's words stirring something deep within her, a reminder that the journey begins with a single step, even if it was fraught with uncertainty. "The kids are right," Clara interjected, voice steadier than she felt. "We cannot promise to erase the hurt, but we can promise to listen and learn." She looked around, meeting the eyes of the townsfolk. "We can create a safe space to share those burdens. It's more than just a picnic, it's a start towards understanding and healing, together." A few nods emerged, but the skepticism stubbornly lingered. Mr. Jenkins crossed his arms. "Words only take you so far, Clara. Actions speak louder. What is your action plan?" "Let us turn the picnic into a day for sharing stories," Clara proposed, inspiring a flicker of interest from the crowd. "We line up chairs, maybe even a small stage, allow people to share whatever they feel. Joy, pain, whatever they need. It'll be our first step. An opportunity to connect, truly connect." The uncertainty shifted in the air, like tension snapping. She watched as Mrs. Harrington's brow unfurled, her expression thoughtful. Others were absorbing the idea, glimmers of curiosity igniting cautiously amongst the crowd. Yet, amidst the slight resurgence of hope, the lingering doubt remained. Would the people really step forward? Clara stole a glance at her children, who were now visibly intrigued by the prospect, their faith somewhat inspiring. But as Clara looked back to the shopkeeper, his gaze hardened, defense still lurking behind his eyes. Would they embrace the change or resist it? As conversation resumed, Clara felt a flickering heartbeat of hope within her. But that spark also trembled against the shadows of doubt. What stories would emerge at the picnic? Would the Harringtons be able to shoulder the weight of these shared experiences when confronted with the community's deep scars? Just then, another crash rang through the evening air, another piece of glass shattering, or had something more vulnerable crumbled. The fraying threads of trust began to unravel once more, deepening the uncertainty that lay ahead. What awaited them when they turned the first page of this shared story? Clara braced for the next wave. The crowd fell silent as the new sound reverberated through the air, a sharp reminder of what was at stake. Clara's heart raced, her stomach churning once more. She glanced nervously at the kids, who were now watching the commotion unfold with a mix of terror and curiosity. Was it another accident, or was it more of the lingering bitterness hidden beneath the surface? "Let me take care of that," Julian said, bright-eyed and determined. He pushed past Clara, his small frame moving with unexpected confidence. "It's just some glass, right? I can help clean it up." His voice rang clear above the hushed whispers, drawing everyone's attention. For a moment, Clara felt the air shift, lightening with the innocence of his spirit. There was something about Julian's determination that made her heart swell. She stepped forward, kneeling beside him. "You sure about that, buddy?" she asked, concern lacing her voice. He nodded vigorously, a grin spreading across his face, bringing warmth back into the icy tension. "Yeah. I can do it." He picked up a stray piece of glass, carefully shaking off the fragments of fear. The adults exchanged glances, various expressions washing over their faces: confusion, skepticism, and most importantly, a spark of admiration. It was a small act, but perhaps it was enough to pave the way for something greater. Just then, Mr. Jenkins approached, wariness replaced with a softer gaze. "I'll join you," he said, grabbing a nearby broom and helping Julian gather the shards. It was a small concession, yet Clara felt a wave of relief wash over her. As the two of them worked together, the crowd couldn't help but adapt to the shift in energy. Clara watched as neighbors began stepping in, each of them picking up a piece of the mess, both literal and metaphorical. The symbolism wasn't lost on her, maybe their journey was starting in unexpected ways. "Okay, tell me about this picnic," Mrs. Harrington said, her voice slightly firmer now. "What is the next step?" Clara turned to her, feeling a flicker of hope reignite. With a deep breath, Clara replied, "We'll set the date next weekend. We'll invite everyone to come with their stories. We can put up a tent, picnic blankets, and maybe even some food. The more people we can get involved, the more we can share." She felt the excitement building in the pit of her stomach, hoping it would absorb the doubts that still lingered. As conversation sparked around her, Clara could see small pockets of laughter and conversation forming. It was a welcome sight, a sign that perhaps they were all willing to meet in the middle. But then something unsettling tugged at her. What if the stories shared next weekend cut deeper than they were all prepared for? Will they really open up? She wondered aloud. The crowd seemed to shift uncomfortably at her question, but it was Julian who answered, still busy cleaning up. "They will, Mom. They just need a chance like we did." His innocent conviction struck deep, intertwining with Clara's swirling thoughts about vulnerability and hidden pain. But would it be that simple? Would they really step forward to share their burdens, and in turn, discover their strengths? As the shuffling and vibrant energy continued, Clara found herself lost in the moment, the tension beginning to feel like a distant memory. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that another storm brewed on the horizon. Just then, a figure emerged from the back of the crowd, an old man cloaked in shadow. His presence loomed heavy, and Clara felt a shiver skitter down her spine. What was his connection to the shattered glass, to the community's hurt? As the crowd began to quiet again, the air thickened with unease. What truths would he unveil, and would they plunge them deeper into uncertainty, or perhaps lead to the healing they all desperately needed? Clara braced herself, her heart pounding like thunder in her chest, anxious for the storm that was about to break. The old man shuffled forward, the weight of years etched into the lines of his face. The crowd held its breath, tension crackling like static in the air. Clara's pulse quickened, the prickle of apprehension racing down her spine as he came to a stop just short of where Julian was kneeling. "Excuse me, folks," he croaked, his voice like dry leaves rustling in the wind. "I've seen a lot in my time, and it seems the wounds here run deeper than just some broken glass." His eyes scanned the crowd, catching glimpses of nodding heads and shifting gazes. An uneasiness spread, it was as if he had struck a nerve. "Who are you?" someone shouted from the back, the voice tinged with skepticism. "I'm just a man who once lived here," he replied, his gaze softening as he looked over the faces, a sea of familiar yet distant memories. "My name is Harold. I used to sweep these streets. I know the stories buried beneath it all." Clara exchanged a glance with Julian, who had paused in his efforts, transfixed by Harold's presence. This was a voice that carried weight. Her heart raced, caught between the pull of curiosity and the chill settling in her gut. "We're not here to dredge up old pains," Clara finally said, stepping slightly forward, her protective instinct flaring. "We're trying to build something new, something good for our kids." Harold nodded slowly, his deep-set eyes reflecting something vulnerable, something raw. "And building requires understanding. If we are to heal, we must face the truths we've hidden away. Our silence has fractured this community for too long." The crowd murmured, caught between fear and recognition. Clara felt the air thicken again, the shadows from the past seeping in. She had hoped this event might be a starting point, a step toward unity, but now doubt flickered through her mind. What if dredging up the past did more harm than good? "What do you mean by truth?" Mrs. Harrington asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What kind of truths?" Harold paused, his fingers trembling as they curled around the edge of his worn-out cap. "The truth of how we lost our way, the truth of mistakes made and how they fester. Some of us are still carrying stones in our hearts, grudges, griefs that weigh heavy." He let the silence stretch, then pressed on. "I saw it all happen. Families torn apart over little things, misunderstandings that spiraled out of control." With every word, Clara felt the walls around her inch closer. People shifted, some heads nodded in recognition. Every piece of glass tells a story, he continued, pointing toward the shards still scattered on the ground. They're reminders of what we lost. But they can also show us the way forward. It takes courage to embrace the light when darkness looms. Clara's heart ached. Could they really do it? Could they face these shadows together? Before she could ponder it further, Julian broke the silence with his high-pitched voice. Then let us pick them up. All of them. We can make it better. A quiet laughter rippled through the crowd, a hesitant wave of hope. Clara felt a spark in her chest again, blooming as the elders' faces softened. Maybe Julian was right. Maybe they all needed a push, a reminder of their childhood strengths, the bonds they once cherished. All right, Clara said, her voice trembling, yet firm. Let us do it. Let us share the stories next weekend, but let us also clean up this mess together. No more hiding. The crowd began to murmur their agreement, an energy buzzing in the air. Together, they all began gathering, the pieces of glass glinting like stars in the morning sun as they navigated the fractured past. As they bent down to pick up the remnants, Clara felt a thread of connection begin to weave through the crowd, yet, just as hope ignited, the distant sound of thunder echoed overhead, a reminder that storms often precede sun. Clara glanced up, her heart racing for an entirely different reason now. Was this unfolding unity strong enough to withstand whatever dark clouds still lingered in their collective hearts? The old man's voice wove through the buzz, reminder that perhaps the toughest parts of the past weren't just stories to share, but lessons forged in pain. Clara braced herself once more, feeling the weight of all that lay ahead. Was their gathering truly a beginning, or could their demons still rise with the next storm? Julian's enthusiastic shout broke the heavy silence that loomed over the gathering, and Clara felt her resolve strengthen as she watched the crowd bend to their task. Each hand, once hesitant, now moved in unison, scooping shards from the ground. The sun peeked through the clouds, casting a golden hue over their efforts. It felt like a sign, a flicker of hope amidst lingering doubt. As they cleaned, old friendships flickered to life. Laughter mingled with the clatter of glass, and Clara saw Mrs. Harrington kneel beside Harold, whispers of shared memories replacing the harsh truths they feared. It was like watching a plant break through the cracked earth, searching for light. Something essential was awakening. Hey, look! Julian exclaimed, holding up a larger piece of glass. This one is pretty. It's like a prism. His excitement was infectious, and soon others joined him, collecting the pieces and marveling at the way the sunlight refracted through them. Clara noticed the tension in the air easing. The collective spirit was forming a gentle bond, stitching them together in ways she hadn't imagined. This used to be my favorite playground. Clara caught Mrs. Harrington's voice, soft but steady as she directed the conversation toward Harold. Do you remember the old swings? Harold nodded, the corners of his mouth lifting in a smile. I built those swings. I remember the laughter of children racing through the park. We need to get that back. The crowd murmured in agreement, nodding heads and murmuring voices signaling a tentative unity, but just as Clara felt the warmth of connection, a gust of wind sent shivers down her spine, stinging her skin like a reminder of the cold shadows they had tried to ignore. The storm clouds thickened overhead, casting a dim light over the scene. Beneath their newly formed bonds, Clara sensed an undercurrent of dread. Were they truly ready to unravel old wounds? Suddenly, a voice sliced through the moment, sharp and accusatory. What about the old troubles? The feud between the Hendersons and the Martinez family? It was Greg, a stubborn presence in the crowd. You think picking up glass is going to change that? The air thickened again, a collective intake of breath. Clara felt her heart drop, the fragile hopes they'd built threatened by his words. She didn't want this moment to collapse. They had come so far already. We're not ignoring the past, Clara countered, stepping forward, her voice steady as she held the gaze of those around her. We're simply choosing to build something better. Together. We can't change what happened, but we can change how we respond. Heads turned toward Greg, some softening in understanding, others steeling against his doubt. Clara felt the room shift, the power of a united front against one voice of dissent. Maybe the way forward is through talking, Clara continued, emboldened by the faces now looking at her with hope. We can share what we lost and what we want to regain. Let us face these issues together, instead of letting them twist in the dark. Greg crossed his arms, the skepticism still etched on his face. But Clara noticed he faltered, just a bit. The connection forming around her igniting bravery where doubt festered, just as she felt momentum building, the heavens opened up, rain pouring down, startling cries erupting from the crowd. Clara raised her hands, let us move to the gazebo. We can finish the conversation there. The group surged forward, laughter and shouts mingled with the rhythmic tapping of rain. For a moment, it felt like they were escaping something larger than themselves. The storm clouds mirrored the shadows in their hearts, but as they huddled together, they forged a new path. Clara's heart raced as she caught Julian's hand, looking back to the faces behind her. They had work to do, stories to unveil, and truths to confront. But could the storm that brewed above threaten their newfound unity? Would the rain wash away their courage just like it had swept through their town for too long? With a determined breath, she led her way into the gazebo. But little did they know, confronting the past would mean facing one shadow in particular, a voice from the past that would challenge everything they were trying to build. Inside the gazebo, the sounds of the rain poured with a steady rhythm on the roof, creating a comforting cocoon around the group. Clara glanced at Julian, who had unwittingly taken on the role of a spirited spokesperson, his energy cascading through every word. She could see the determination in his eyes, mirroring the resolve brewing within her. This place, it felt alive once, didn't it? Julian said, catching the attention of their neighbors. Let us be that life again. The crowd erupted in murmurs of agreement, the rain washing away the tension, leaving hopes bright and fresh. Clara directed her focus on the gathering, noticing faces previously strained by the unspoken burdens of conflict. We all have stories that connect us to this park, she prompted, hoping to spark that initial conversation they needed. Let us share them. A young woman, a stranger until today, stepped forward, her voice trembling like the raindrops. I remember coming here as a kid to swing with my brother. We had fun despite everything. It was our escape. Her words brought a bittersweet smile that ignited quiet nods throughout the space. Encouraged, another man chimed in. And I remember the giant oak tree. We often plant ourselves under its branches, sharing secrets, he said, chuckling. What a good place for a little trouble now and then. Laughter broke out, rippling through the crowd, and Clara felt a weight lift. They were beginning to reconcile the ghosts of their past, to reclaim the joy that had been buried beneath old feuds. Yet, before the conversation could deepen, a figure appeared at the edge of the gazebo, half shrouded by the misty rain. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the silhouette of face that stirred every unresolved issue within her. It was Angela Henderson, the fierce matriarch of the family who had borne the brunt of their community's tensions. A silence fell over the congregation, a thick air crackling with uncertainty. Clara's heart thundered as she exchanged a look with Julian, who instinctively pressed closer to her side. Aren't you all just charming? Angela's voice dripped with sarcasm. Cleaning up a few shards won't fix years of animosity. You think you're building something here? You're just building a pretty lie. Gasps spread across the group, and Clara felt reality closing in around her. In an instant, the warmth of unity fractured, replaced by nervous tension. She struggled to find words, battling against the swell of doubt threatening to overpower her resolve. Angela, we don't have to continue this way, Clara finally stated, her voice steadier than she felt. This isn't just about the past, it's about what we can create today. Let us not let bitterness be our legacy. Angela's eyes narrowed, her lips pressing together tightly, clearly considering her next words. And what if I say that I have the power to crush this moment? What will you all do then, The tension in the air grew thick as Clara took a step forward, heart pounding. She wasn't sure of the power of her voice, but she had to try. You can choose to help us instead, she urged. Help us bring back the memories, the laughter. At that moment, amidst the heavy rain and heavy hearts, Clara sensed she was about to collide with a force that could tip the scales either way. The disdain in Angela's eyes fluttered with something else, curiosity, perhaps. Clara dared to hope that maybe too, Angela had cracks beneath her tough exterior, but what would that mean for everyone gathered? Would the storm truly cleanse the past, or would it push them all further apart? Clara swallowed hard, aware that the conversation was about to reflect every shadow they tried to avoid. Angela's gaze bore into Clara, her expression unreadable. The rain drummed relentlessly against the roof of the gazebo, mingling with the mounting tension. Clara held her breath, willing herself to stand firm in the face of the storm brewing not only outside but within the gathering. You think it's that simple? Angela finally spoke, her tone icy. You think a few heartfelt stories can wash away the hurt? We are not just a community, we are a family divided. Clara felt energy ripple through the crowd. Every face shifted in uncertainty, glances exchanged like silent conversations. She needed to find her footing, to be the voice that could anchor them all. No, Clara replied, her voice steadying as fear began to ebb away. But understanding is a powerful first step. It's not about pretending that the past didn't happen. It's about embracing our scars and learning from them together. A murmur of agreement rippled through the townsfolk, confidence returning to some faces as they began to nod in acknowledgement. Clara could feel Julian's little hand squeeze hers tighter, and she drew strength from him, reminding herself of the path she was forging not just for herself but for her children. And what about the Hendersons? Angela challenged, her voice rising over the rain. What if we don't want to be part of your little happy family reunion? What if you had a chance to share what happened? Clara countered, her heart racing but her mind clear. To voice the pain and grievances? Can't we start by understanding where the anger comes from? Angela's brows furrowed as uncertainty flickered in her eyes, but Clara pressed on. We all have stories to tell. If we bring them into the light, perhaps we can find a way to move forward. Next to her, Mr. Harrington stepped up, his demeanor serious but agreeable. Angela, we're not here to minimize what has happened. We want to acknowledge it, learn from it, and perhaps, grow together. The unexpected alliance shifted the dynamics. Clara caught sight of Mia and Julian, their anxiousness transforming into hope as they witnessed the power of community unfolding. Angela hesitated, the fire in her stance flickering. The sound of rain pattering turned into a gentle rhythm, their shared vulnerability lingered in the air like a hesitant promise of change. Maybe, she began slowly, pulling her brows together, if we can all find the courage to speak, maybe some of us can heal. A profound silence enveloped the crowd, Clara sensing a pivotal moment unfolding. They were on the brink of something extraordinary. Then let us start right here, right now, Clara declared, her spirit blazing. Let us share one story, one real connection, that shows where we've all been. Angela's walls cracked further, emotions churning behind her tough exterior. She looked deep into Clara's eyes, and in that instant, Clara felt mirrored courage. I am not proud of the pain my family has caused your family. I was angry, and fear blinds you to the truth of others' pain. The crowd stirred, understanding rippling through the murmurs. Clara pressed further. That's it, Angela. We can be honest about our struggles and our fears. Let us not allow our children to continue these cycles. The realization hung in the air, and Clara's heart swelled as Mrs. Harrington, hands outstretched towards Angela, murmured, we are all here to rise above this together. With a share of hesitant breaths, hearts turned closer as Angela nodded slowly. Okay. I'll go first. The crowd leaned in, collective hearts racing. Angela stepped forward, voice unsteady but fierce. I lost my brother years ago to a reckless act spurred by anger. A feud broke our family. I want to fix that, but I also lost sight of how to truly connect with those I have hurt. As she spoke, vulnerability poured forth, washing away a thin sheen of bitterness. Clara felt a weight lift. Here was a moment they both needed. One by one, others stepped up, powered by courage, fueled by a desire to connect. Personal stories poured out, regrets, memories, moments of gratitude. Each tale, heavy with emotion, created an unbreakable chain weaving the community back together. As the storm outside cleared, sunlight streamed through the gazebo, illuminating the faces united in honesty, heartache, and healing. Clara felt warmth bloom within her as laughter rippled through the crowd again, laughter woven from understanding instead of scorn. As they shared stories of both struggles and triumphs, Clara could see the light, a chance for a true and lasting transformation. The laughter felt genuine, a signal that they were, at last, on their way to reconciliation, away from the shadows and into the glow of a hopeful future. For the first time, Clara caught a glimpse of who they could become together, families of past pain, rising up to embrace their present and rightable future. She smiled through her tears, squeezing Julian's hand. Together, she murmured, the air heavy with promise, and just like that, they found their beginning. But this was just another story of healing. It was a testament, a rallying cry for their community, and Clara knew this was only the beginning of a journey that would transform them all. If you felt moved by this story, you need to subscribe now to our channel. Don't miss out on these exclusive stories. Leave a like now to help fuel our mission. Every click matters. Comment with your thoughts and feelings about this ending. I want to hear your reactions, and please, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who really need to witness this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Together, we can keep telling powerful stories.